Okay, go on. I've started recording as well.
एक मिनट हो. મુંબઈ કોઈન સોસાયટીનું શું છે? ગ્રુપ છે શું છે? Got it, got it. Okay. Good evening, friends. Welcome to our Mumbai Coin Society talk. And we welcome Dr. Shailendra Bhandare once again for his third talk out of the four. And a brief introduction about Dr. Shailendra. Firstly, in the world of numismatics, Dr. Shailendra Bhandare needs no introduction. But anyways, here we go. His first degree was in pharmacy. He started his academic career in the UK with a long stint at the British Museum. He's currently the senior assistant keeper at the Ashmolean Museum. He's a fellow at St. Cross College, University of Oxford. He has gained the reputation of being the foremost scholar for our generation in Indian numismatics. He's a walkie-talkie encyclopedia on Indian numismatics. Above all, he is accessible to one and all to answer questions on Indian numismatics. And the topic for today is Finding a Foothold, the East India Company's Mint at Mumbai, 1665 to 1715 AD. Welcome, Dr. Shailin, and the mic is over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Malcolm. As usual, as we've done in the last two meetings, I'm going to stop my own video when I talk, and then sort of come back at the end of the talk, and then participants can ask their questions, whatever they want to ask, in the chat box. All the participants are going to be muted by us. So if anybody has unmuted itself, please mute, this is to do with bandwidth. Nobody should have any problems. So the third talk is going to be on Mumbai, really, because this is going to be a Mumbai Coin Society meeting. So I thought, well, we should talk about a little bit about Mumbai, or Bombay, as it was known in the colonial times. What I'm going to showcase here, is the very early years of the company's career at Mumbai, and what exactly was happening in terms of as far as coinage was concerned, because coinage was very important, as you can imagine. The company was a trading company. It had to conduct trade, it had to conduct commerce, and coins were obviously a very important part of whatever they wanted to achieve in terms of their profits or losses or whatever. So it's a very significant subject, or part of the significant spectrum that they were sort of covering while in Bombay. The scholarship of numismatics in Bombay has been largely devoted to these four gentlemen, and whatever I'm going to say here today is actually standing on their shoulders. I'm going to sort of collate information from various works that they have done. The first of these guys was Jose Gerson da Cunha, and he was a very eminent Indologist in the Asiatic society circles in the 19th century. He wrote probably one of the first long-standing sort of articles, which it was such a long article that it was like a book almost, on Indo-Portuguese numismatics, and then this was his main concern. He was also a very eminent coin collector himself. I mean, he collected about 27,000 coins apparently, and they were all in 1980s. He suffered a financial setback, 1880s, sorry, and at that time the entire collection was sold. Edgar Thurston, the second person here, was a British colonial officer and in charge of the Madras Museum. And as curator of Madras Museum in the late 19th century, he did lots of initial writing on the coins of the British in India, really. So he's kind of the first person who actually runs into as a sort of founding fathers of British Indian numismatics in as such. Pridmore doesn't need any introduction. He's probably the most well-known set of cataloger and collector of these British Commonwealth coins. And his books are absolutely sort of a bedrock of all the scholarship. And lastly, Paul Stevens, who has sort of enhanced on Pridmore's work quite extensively in terms of actually going back to the sources, trying to find out the documents in the archives and finding information that Pridmore reproduced. What was the source of that information? That was very important, because unless we actually know the sources, we can't really re-examine these sources. So Paul's work, apart from being the most up-to-date cataloger of British Indian coins, is also a kind of a person who actually achieved a great deal of revision for whatever Pridmore had researched. One of the drawbacks of major drawbacks of Pridmore that when he quoted information from the archives, he did not give the proper sources. So he was not exactly an academic kind of person. So to actually find out where the information is coming from was very important, and that's what Paul achieved to a great degree. So when it comes to Bombay, this is a slide that all of us probably know the details of. The name of Mumbai derives from Mumba, the mother goddess worshipped by the fishermen folk. And there is historical evidence available to suggest that the island was settled between the sort of 10th and 13th centuries in Shilahara and Yadava periods, and there was already a settlement on the islands of Bombay. In 14th to 16th centuries, it was sort of ruled by the sultans of Delhi and Gujarat. And then finally in 1538, as a part of the war between the Portuguese and the Gujarat Sultan Bahadur Shah, the Portuguese sort of took over this part in roughly about 1538. The next important date on this history was the marriage of the British King Charles II with the Portuguese princess Catherine of Braganza. And as a result of that marriage, there were two places on the globe. That was Bombay, and there was Tangier. The Tangier is located in Morocco. It's way out in Africa. But these two places were transferred to the English crown by a treaty that was concluded between the Portuguese and the British on 23rd of June, 1661. So this was the kind of the transfer of actual position of Bombay. The transfer actually happened on paper at this time, but it still took about 4 years for the actual handover. So Bombay was handed over to the British in February 1665. Then about 3 years later, the king rented the island of Bombay to the East India Company, which had been sort of functioning up till that point for about 60, 70 odd years. And on 27th of March, 1668, the island was transferred on lease to the East India Company. But quite interestingly, Bombay was actually part of the estate of East Greenwich, which is kind of just outside London. And at that point, it was in the county of Kent. So Bombay was considered a part of Britain at this time. And it was a very interesting thing that this was considered as the King's Manor of East Greenwich, Bombay was a part of. So this is a kind of old connection between Britain and Bombay that the city has. The activities of British in India in the 17th century were dominated by the idea of mercantilism. Now, this is a kind of particular political economic philosophy. And mercantilism, in its basis, believes that the wealth of a nation is brought by profits, and the profits that are made through trade. So when a nation conducts a trade, then the profits that are arising out of that trade, then they bring wealth. They sort of add to the nation's, in modern economic terms, we would call them as GDP. These profits that are bringing through trades are actually enriching the nation. And this was a kind of philosophy that was practiced from late 16th and early 17th century. And the main outcome of this political philosophy was that stock holding merchant companies were formed, like East India Company, and people put sort of pooled together capital, then they utilized the capital to trade, and the profits then were distributed to the shareholders. So this was a very sort of capitalist, mercantilist kind of way of functioning. And the rush for sort of accessing the profits was so high that very earlier on, people started facing problems with coins, because the cash that was there in Britain at that time, early 17th century, came under such a lot of pressure, because everybody wanted to pool the cash into the functioning of these companies, that in 1619 there was a case where there was not enough metal left in the country to strike coins. This is a very serious thing. So as a result of this, the British wanted concessions. The British wanted to talk to the Mughals who were in charge at that time, and they sent embassies. So Ralph Finch, John Mildenhall, and Thomas Rose. Thomas Rose is probably the most important and the most famous of the ambassadors, because he wrote a diary, and we know exactly all his accounts while he was in India. Ralph Finch and John Mildenhall were not really successful, but Thomas Roe was, and he ultimately gained a permission from Jahangir to establish a factory, an outpost, a trading outpost at Surat. But Mughals were not the only people who were actually, that the company was having talks with. There were other kings and rulers in the country as well. So the company also opened talks with other people, like the Adil Shahis of Bijapur, for example. And they then established other trading posts as Dabol and Rajapur. These were the places on the Konkan coast, and these were at that time the whole area was under the control of the Adil Shahis of Bijapur. So this is what they sort of appointed the trading outposts of. And right from the word go, they started facing problems with currency, and the main problems with currency was that the main currency of the land was the rupee. And the rupee was a Mughal currency, and it was strictly controlled by the Mughals. The Mughals, because of their Islamic idea of kingship, will not let anybody strike a coin in anybody else's name, apart from the Mughal emperor himself. So the Mughal had very stringent control over the issue and the supply of the rupees. So this is something that the company starts grappling with right from the word go. And of course, when you have two currencies, there must be an agency to actually make them exchangeable. And this agency was the Shroffs. And this was a big problem. And we can find lots and lots of material in the archives about how the Shroffs were actually charging excessive, exchange commissions, or batta, as it was called. And there was a kind of a nexus between these Shroffs and the state officials at Mint as well, because the state officials would sort of, hand in gloves with the Shroffs, and they would together they would actually try to impede or make the trading with coins very difficult. And at the same time, there was a demand for coins as well. So the coin people wanted to trade in, wanted to conduct their business in coins rather than any other things. So making coins themselves was a profitable business. I mean, so you could bring in silver, and if you actually can make coins, you could receive a commission out of this, and you can charge people for mintage, etc. And that would add to its profit. So actual coins were also a profitable business. In the 17th century, we find particularly from Gerson da Cunha's work, that the local currency system was based on a Portuguese system, because before Bombay was given over to the British, the Portuguese were rulers of the things. The money was kept in accounts in 3 or 4 denominations. So there were jarafins, which was a kind of Portuguese word equivalent for a rupee. There were larins, and the copper coins were also called reis. So these were the 3 kinds of denominations that one finds that accounts are being kept in. The actual money in circulation was jarafins, which is silver rupees, pies, copper pies, and something called bazarukos, which was a tin currency, which was made of tin. And that sort of comes from the word bazaar and ruk, which means small change that is used in a bazaar. So in a nutshell, Jarafi was silver, pies was copper, and bazaruko was a tin or tin alloy coins. Similarly, there was also Mughal rupees, and they were chiefly from Surat. And there are also something called Mahamudis, which was struck by the Raja of Baglana, which was a little kingdom located in northwest of Maharashtra, around what is today's Dhulia district. And these were the coins that were being produced there. And these are just examples of what I just said. There's a Portuguese Jarafi at top, which is dated 1650, which was struck in Goa. The paisa that you see on top right is a paisa of Aurangzeb, so Mughal copper coins. In the center, you see a tin bazaruco, which is a Portuguese bazaruco. As all coin collectors know, the hairpin-like coin to the bottom left is Larin, and to the bottom right is an example of a Mahmudi, which is dated 1027 Hijri, although it is struck posthumously in the name of Akbar. So these are just an example of the kind of coins that one might have seen before the British take over the city, the islands of Mumbai. As soon as this happens in 1660s, there is always, there is an account that there is always there's a need for small money. And this is an excerpt from Henry Gary, who was the king's representative. So this is before the island was even leased to the East India Company. The king's representative is writing back saying that the copper coins are called a pice, and the equivalence is that 13 3/4 make a shilling, and the tin ones are called buzuruks or bazarucos, and 16 bazarucos make one pice. And he also says that there is a need here for small money, particularly for paying laborers, etc. So if the lordship, the king, the governors agree, then it would be a good idea to have a mint opened at this place. So very earlier on, soon after the takeover, the British were already thinking of operating a mint. So on 6th of October 1668, there is another sort of, a kind of report to London saying that it would be good to have a stamp, to have these dies and copper and tin and small money of exchange, which is much wanted on this island. So there's again this kind of, constant pressure that we want small money, and we want to do this trade. There was then again a second request to actually coin gold, silver, copper, and tin. So not just the small money, but also sort of larger denominations. They say that we would like to have these coins so that we could be, we could exchange them with the present value. If it's not the same, that's fine. We could pay a little bit of commission, but to have their own coins is quite important. And we see that in March of 1670, there were 300 rupees worth copper coins were imported to Bombay from Surat to pay particularly small sums to laborers that were working for the company. So this was the kind of situation that there was, and there was a kind of demand for small coins as well as large coins. So it was kind of profitable, and it was considered good to have probably started the mint. So Surat then responded. At this time, Surat is the main office of the company. Bombay is just a smaller sub-office, as it were. So in February of 1671, we think that they write saying that we think it is convenient for us to have a coin of our own, as in Bombay. We should, and they are very careful here, and they say that the coins that they want here, we have to be very careful that it should not be actually our king's coins. And it should not have a stamp resembling the British king's name, because the Mughals were very, very aware of this thing, and that would cause them a lot of problem. So they should actually have a coin which is of a neutral stamp, and then it should make the traffic and exchange of the country in both bigger and lesser species. The coins should be of various denominations so that we can actually trade. So and they are very much aware that to have good coins is actually adding to their honor. So so they say, let it have an intrinsic value as to what it is stamped for. So what the actual stamp is, the value should be exactly the same, because it is our honor, it says. And honor, the begetting and preserving the esteem is very important for us. That this is all, trade speak. They are traders, so they have to maintain their honor, they have to maintain their esteem, because people should trust them. If you don't trust the traders, then obviously the trade is going to be affected. So they're very much aware where the coins fit into all this whole picture about themselves, about how the currency system should be operated. And sooner or later, they get a permission, and then they start applying, start sort of making progress. In January of 1672, we find that there is a guy called Richard Adams who's actually appointed in charge of the mint. So the mint is actually established, and there is a person to run it. There's a kind of an office. In September and October of 1672, there are mentions in the documents of bullion being kept aside for coining copper and silver. Gold is not available at this time. So gold is out of question, but copper and silver, they start keeping, there is, for example, there is this entry saying that of the copper which we have taken ashore, what we have not sold, we intend to coin into pies for use of your island. So the metal is sort of being imported as a trade commodity, and whatever has not been sold can be then issued into coins. This is, and they say that we hope that this will also turn you a profit. So this is again coming back to the question that making coins themselves was profitable. Later in 1672, John Child is appointed as in charge of the mint. And we know for the fact that this mint was supposed to be erected in East India House. There was a building called East India House in Bombay Fort at that time. And it was going to be erected in this East India House, and until a convenient room for it in the fort can be fitted for coining silver, because silver was an important metal. So you can see that the operation of the mint was like, bifurcated. It was part of it was being conducted into this building called East India House. And when they ultimately decided to coin silver, then they would say it would be carried out inside the fort, because of the safety reasons. Towards the end of 29th of November, 1672, we know that they have decided on the names of the coins. So the gold coin was going to be called Carolina. The silver was called Angelina. The copper was called Copperoon, and the tin was going to be called Tinny. So gold was called Carolina because Carolus is the Latin version of the king's name. And silver was called Angelina because of the honor of the country, England. And copper and tin were just named after the respective metals. So these were the kind of names that they decided. In December 1672, they're actually making coins. And he actually sends coins of the specimens back to London to actually show the head office in London. And he says, what was the reason? The reason we started thinking about it almost a year ago, like in 1671, but what has now caused this delay is because a lot of the reserved bullion had to be sent to Surat because there were debts to be settled. And he also said that we were actually having a serious debate and consultations with the baniyas and the sheriffs. Now, sheriffs are not sheriff, but shroffs really. And this is because we wanted to so their verdict was that all coins that we're going to strike should be struck at par with the standard of Surat. So this is what the decision that was being made, that it was going to be exchangeable directly with the rupees that were being struck at Surat. And these deliberations, of course, caused some of the delay. And why was this important? Because that way they had a greater chance of passing more currently in the neighboring countries of the Portuguese, Shivaji, and the Deccan. So Shivaji is emerging here as a kind of a major player in the politics at this time. So these are the kingdoms that are surrounding Bombay at this time. And, they say that this is important, that we should strike the coins to the standard of Surat because they should then be able to pass more currently in the neighboring countries. Gerard Ongier also says that we decidedly gave the coins the English names. So this was properly, there was some sort of English nationalism coming here. And this was because everything that goes on the island is Portuguese. And we wanted to ensure that people and to teach them the English tongue. So he says that because we wanted to cause this, move between Portuguese to English, we decided to name the coins as have English names so that people will start speaking in English, and these coins will be, part of their English tongue, as it were. and to disuse the Portuguese as much as we can. So this was, kind of actually, showing Portuguese the door, as it were, in the things. Then he gives the exchange rate. 11 tinnies make 1 copperoon. 48 copperoons make an angelina. So, and 48 copperoons making an angelina was pretty much the Mughal exchange rate. So it was at this time, Mughal paisas were sort of trading between 45 and 50 to a rupee. So 48 copperoons making an angelina was pretty much the standard exchange rate between silver and copper. And then at the end, Gerard Ongier's report says, this mint, when thoroughly settled, we hope will raise a considerable advance to the revenue. So again, we are coming back to the question that making coins is profitable, and actually running this mint will earn us profit, and it will add to our revenues. And here is the first glimpse into what do the coins will actually show. So as to the stamp, we have concluded that for the gold and silver and copper, the stamps on one side will be Honorable Company's arms with this inscription in a circle, Honorabilis Societas Anglicana Indiarum Orientalum. And this is written in short. This means Honorable Society, sort of English East India Company. This is the Latin translation of the name Honorable English East India Company. And on the other side, it says Moneta Bombay Anglicani Regiminis Anno Septimo. This means actually the coin of Bombay struck in the 7th year of British rule. So 1672 was the 7th year of British rule, and this was counted from 1665, obviously. And this was, this was the date when the king actually got the possession of the mint at Mumbai. So this is again quite interesting that they have actually the kind of Mughal system of dating the coins in regnal years. This is what is quite interesting. Although the inscription is actually given in Latin, it is using the same system of having a Julius or a regnal year on it. And on the outward circle, the coins are going to say A Deo Pax et Incrementum. From God, peace and growth. That is what it says. So this is what the company's aspirations were at this time. And these are examples of these very early coins. They are the silver ones are extremely rare. The copper ones are quite common, but one doesn't see them in this kind of superb condition. Both these are from the collection of the British Museum. And the tin coin is actually illustrated from Pridmore's book. That is, again, another very rare coins. The reason why the silver coins were so rare is because they were hardly ever struck, because the company's financial position at this time was pretty much, pecuniary. And you can see that this actually matches exactly with Ongier's description. The Honorabilis Societas Anglicani Indiarum Orientalum is written on obverse in short form. This Hon, Soc, Ang, Ind, Ori, and in the center there are the company's arms. And then on the reverse it says Monet Bombay Anglic Regiminis AO70. That means Anno Septimo, 7th year. And these were the first coins ever struck by the British in 1672. We see that the copper actually gets very, very popular, and they start making copper coins for a long time. So we see that this on the top left has A080, which is the 8th regnal year, in 1673, A090, which is 1674, and then lower coin, lower left is ANDO, and that means Anno Decimo, which is the 10th year. And so long, and sort of, and it sort of goes on after that. The last year that we see in this design is actually 1709. So you can see that the company's coinage of copperoons went on really for a long time. So that's the coin on the bottom right, which has the date written A1709, which is very clearly at the bottom in the inscription in the center. So this design was then carried out for a fairly long time. The tin coins were struck in the denominations of 2 tinnies and 1 tinny. So, oops, sorry. Pardon. Yeah. So there is a 2 tinny coin from the British Museum's collection. Again, it says 2 and 75 on the reverse. And similarly, there is a later tin coin, but the first time we saw, which was 1672. This one says 77. So it's a kind of another sort of later issue at this time. So tin coins were also, went on like functioning for a while, but not as good as well as copper coins. As soon as this the currency was started, there were problems with acceptance and circulation. There was, it was very difficult for them to get these coins circulating. And the main reason for that was that the coins were dramatically different in design to any circulating coins at that time. You can imagine that all the circulating coins at this time were Mughal coins, so they had Persian inscriptions on them, or written in Farsi. So anything that was looking very, very different, like the coins that we just saw, were obviously susceptible for refusal and discounting, and shroffs here again were creating problems. The company was also giving payments to its staff in other coins, such as dollars, for example, whatever they had, silver coins. And again, when they went to the shroffs to exchange these coins into rupees, they were paying a lot of commission on it, and there was constantly these problems. And as a result, money had become very costly and on the island of Bombay. Then the Mughal governor started creating problems, and he said, I'm not going to allow this into general circulation in Surat, because he says that the coins are not commensurate with their weight and value to their price. So this is, again, they were actually, stuck in good silver, and they were stuck to the good weight. They were exactly the same weight as the rupees, but these were all, excuses that the Mughal governor was giving, because as I said at the beginning, the governors, the political officials at Surat and the money changers at Surat were hand in glove. And unless the political official sort of creates a situation by which the shroffs could actually exact more commission, and then they would get a kickback. So this was something not really a problem that the coins themselves had, but the system that was putting these problems across them. Then Bombay was still surrounded at this time by the Portuguese, and the Portuguese were quite unhappy, because they said, well, it doesn't make any reference to the king or the queen. It's a company's coinage. It's not actually stuck in the name of the king and queen of Britain, so we are not going to respect it. Then this sort of troubles kept on happening in Bombay, and in 1674 there is an account that actually a mutiny happened at Bombay, because soldiers complained about high price of money due to shroffage, which is the activities of the shroff. And then basically they said, we can't cope with this high value of money, and it's becoming very difficult for us to actually use money that we are getting in the pay. We're losing value all the time because of these practices. As a result, one of the things that the company wants to do is actually try to make active efforts by which they can put these coins into circulation. So they see Shivaji as a kind of a great person who's he's an emerging political entity. He's going to. They know that he was going to in 1674 he was going to stage a coronation. So they decide to send an embassy to Shivaji with a whole lot of demands, including political demands, not just related to economic, but also political demands, to the fort of Raigad, where Shivaji was going to be residing. And this sort of happened between March and June of 1674. And this is a nice painting by the early 20th century artist M.V. Dhurandhar, which shows Henry Oxenden in Shivaji's coronation darbar, as it were. And so what happened at this time? So the party of Shivaji the party of Oxenden arrived at Raigad on 23rd of May. And they had appointed somebody called Niraji Pandit, who was one of the ministers of Shivaji. His name was Niraji Raoji. And he was their intermediary. He was the person who was actually going to talk, between Shivaji and the British at this thing. There was, in the treaty, there was a clause regarding coins. And the clause said that Shivaji should allow English coins to circulate freely in his territories. This was the clause. when Niraji saw the papers, he already suggested that Shivaji might not agree to this clause because he intends to start a mint at Raigad. So he could well avail the profits of the trade. So he says Shivaji is going to have his own coins quite soon. So he's not going to let your coins, sort of, jump his own market. He wants to be part of this whole idea of coins bring profits as well. Making actually starting a mint would be a profitable activity, and he wants to avail the profits of the trade. So he's not going to allow you to allow your coins actually. Shivaji and Oxenden then meet twice. We know that they met twice, once before and once after the coronation ceremony. And Henry Oxenden has written a very wonderful account of this, and we know what was going on at this time directly through Henry Oxenden's account. And what transpires between these two, and he says that he has agreed to everything that we said, except the demand that our money should go current in his country. Now, this particular sentence has been interpreted by a lot of people saying that, oh, well, look at Shivaji, how clever he was. He knew that coins meant sovereignty, and therefore having British coins would actually be a kind of affront to his sovereignty, and therefore he sort of refused. The real story is not like that. Shivaji did not say that at all. What Shivaji's position was very interesting in a way. He said that this is something that I am not going to do. I'm not going to meddle into this. If your coins are good enough, people will accept them. I'm not going to say that people should accept this coin or that coin. Coin trade is an open market, and everybody is allowed to sort of trade in it. Whoever produces coins which are reliable, his coins can pass. It's nothing to do with me, actually. I'm not going to put my foot in between. And this is something that the British don't understand very well, because they think that, from their perspective, coinage is something that is regulated, and it's a king's right, really. And so they say, okay, well, how do we understand this? So they are not really sort of very clear about it. At the end, Shivaji says, I'm not going to sign this treaty with this clause as it is. You modify the clause and I'll sign it. So they finally do that. They agree to that, okay, well, Shivaji will not take the responsibility of sort of authorizing somebody else's currency in his kingdom. He says the market is open. Anybody with their coins which are sufficiently trustworthy could start circulating their coins, and it's up to the people to accept them or to reject them. This is what Shivaji's position was. And this is quite interesting, because by this time, the British Mint in Bombay had actually been functioning for about 2 years. And when Oxenden actually sent for some change, he wanted some small change, and when he sent for the change, for exchanging, he actually says that we find among the pies that came back, they bring us an abundance of Bombay pies. So the coins of Bombay were actually circulating in Shivaji's kingdom right when Oxenden was there. So actually there was actually no need for Shivaji to actually authorize or not authorize the thing. So this is a very interesting political matter that one sort of comes up with. To address the situation that the Portuguese had risen, that there should be no name of king or queens, Gerard Ongier proposed this particular design, which you see here on top left, and this has this design of interlocking C, and that for Charles and Catherine, and this was kind of a reference to the king and queen. And at this time, we also find Ongier suggesting that the name of the coin should be changed to Ingress rather than Anglina. For what reason, I have no idea, but this is what he thinks, that maybe Anglina was a kind of Latin name, whereas Ingress was very close to Angres, which was a Farsi word, and that would be more acceptable nomenclature. But that's what he suggests, that at this time, this particular coin should be called an Ingress. And sooner or later, they found this one sort of satisfactory design, which did not have a lot of Latin inscription on it. Very simple inscriptions: Pax Deo right in the center, peace from God, and in the round it says Moneta Bombayensis, which means money of Bombay. and all the other, so they realized that what was actually causing the designs to be complicated was these long Latin inscriptions. And if they simplified that Latin inscription into something very simple design, then probably the coins had a better chance of getting accepted. So this Pax Deo design that was started in 1675, then sort of carried on at least until 1692 that we know. And we can see that there are lots of small and large varieties in this. For example, this Pax Deo rupee on the top left has the A has no bar in the center in Pax Deo, so it's just an angle. This coin to the top right, it is from our collection, the Ashmolean's collection, and this has sort of erroneous inscription. So you can see that the N, letter N in moneta is written as a mirror image. Then instead of moneta, instead of E, they have written B. So all these kind of sort of mistakes sort of creeping up in its inscriptions. And along with rupees, we also have samples of half rupees of Pax Deo type, which are extremely rare. But of course, they were, as the surviving specimens show, they were also struck at this time. In 1676, something interesting happens, and this is where the King Charles II, gives actually a charter, a latest patent to the company, and he says that then the company is allowed to strike coins in his name. But they should be stamped. They're allowed to stamp coins of money of gold, silver, copper, and tin or lead, with such impression and inscription thereupon be made and be called the names of rupee, pice, and pujruks. So this is his kind of giving an authority to the company, official authority to the company to strike coins in the East. So they think that this is a good idea to actually create a design in Britain for issuing in coins in Bombay. So this new design, I'll show you in what this new design was in a minute, was then in 1677, February, the design was showed to the court of directors, the company's directors, and the king was then shown that as well. And it is recorded that the king saw and approved of the design last night. So there's a very, immediacy to it. You can imagine the design being shown to the king, and he says, well, all right, I'm happy with the design. These coins were to be made using machines, and these were not exactly machines as in, powered machines with electricity or anything else. These were basically machines that were used by human power or animal power. And by this time, the actual technique of striking coins with machines was very much in vogue in Europe. Coins were being struck by screw presses and rolling presses and all these kind of mechanical devices. They were not struck entirely by hand. So these machines were called engines in general terms. So they decided that we could actually strike these coins using engines, and therefore they would be more attractive. They would have modern, in contemporarily, whatever was modern features, such as a milling on the edge. So, there won't be any problem about scraping or clipping of coins. So these were, these were kind of state-of-the-art coins by their standards. And this is what they thought that they would mean that these coins were, would be acceptable better in the trade. So they appoint this guy called George Bowers, who was employed to make dies and to make these engines and to be made to send to Bombay. Then they sent somebody called John Morris, who was an expert coiner from the London Mint. He was employed to go to Bombay to get the production started. And along with these, this chap, John Morris, there were also two other guys called Samuel Ensley and George Cook, who were not exactly related to this coining business, but they were also given some training so that they could run these machines. So in late 1678, they arrive in Bombay, but the experiment just goes wrong. They just can't get these things. First of all, Morris, when he arrives to Bombay, within a week, he dies because he drinks too much and he's having addicted to strong drink. There was another chap in the company who knew something to how to operate these machines. And there is a note that he ran away with somebody else's wife. So all sorts of funny things were happening at this time, as you can see. And Ainsley and Cook, who were not exactly engineers in any way, they just cannot run the mechanical press. So the entire experiment is abandoned very quickly. And this whole idea of sending somebody from London all the way to Bombay to actually operate coining press is then given up for a while. We do have one entry in the records in 1680-81 when somebody called Robert Smithas was going to be sent with new machinery. But again, he was thought to be too expensive. His charges were too expensive, and he was going to be paid £60 per year, which is a huge amount of salary in those days. So he was then, the whole thing was then shelved for the time being. And these are the examples of the designs that were being prepared. And these three are, you can see that they are actually struck in the name of Charles II. It says, by authority of Charles II, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland. The King of Britain actually regarded himself as the King of France at this time. And the coat of the symbol here is not of the company, but it is the King's symbol. So it's the royal coat of arms of Great Britain, and with a crown on top. So they are very much in the name of the King rather than the company. And on the reverse, it says the Rupee of Bombay in center. And the date is 1678. And you can see that there are two trial strikes which are above. The trial strike to the top right is actually in a white metal called pewter. It's a kind of a trial, strike made in an inferior metal. The coin on the top left is quite interesting because that is again in the British Museum's collection. That is actually a trial strike of the dies on a copper coin, a quarter penny copper coin of Charles II. And it is dated 1673. So we know that they used kind of an old coin to make these, to see whether the dies were actually getting struck. So that is a unique piece. And that only exists in the collection of the British Museum. So this is a kind of an idea that why how the dies were tried out. The nicely struck coin is actually a Tower Mint pattern that was being struck in the mint at London. We also have examples which are most likely the outcome of the faulty striking that Ainsley and Cook operated at this time. So you can see that this particular coin on the top here has got jagged edges. The impressions are not really correct, and so this is possibly the result of the coins being struck in Bombay when the machines were being then exported. And quite recently, we found a very important coin, and that is on the top, sort of bottom right here, and that's actually a half rupee. And here again, you can see that it has, these kind of damages on them, and the damages are not because the coin is actually circulated or mounted or anything of that sort. This sort of damage happens only because of faulty striking, and we know from this unique surviving specimen, which was discovered in a junk shop in North England 2 or 3 years ago, that even half rupees of this particular die were being attempted at Bombay Mint. So very significant discovery that was, because there is no actual record of half rupees being minted in the documents themselves. The coin itself is a proof of it. So they go back to the Pax Dio design, and we know that that was continued at least till 1692. And this is again a unique coin in the British Museum's collection, which has a date, a very significant date in the history of Bombay. It says 1687, and this was thought to be, mainly by Pridmore, this was thought to be issue celebrating the move of company's government from Surat to Bombay. From henceforth, on 2nd May 1687 onwards, Bombay becomes the major, the head office of the company in Western India, not Surat. So Surat is abandoned permanently, and the company moves its operations to Bombay. And this particular rupee was probably struck to commemorate this particular occasion. We go back to the problem that the coins were having. And as I said, one of the main problems that the coins had, that they did not actually match in their appearance to any coins that were circulating at that time. So this was basically done at, all the other coins were Persian style coinage. Very earlier on, they decided that there would be attempts to make a proposal to the council to have a Persian style coins. So earlier on, Gerald Ongier actually makes this proposal for the first time, that they should have a Persian characters saying Charles II, King of England, etc. And on the other side, it should say money of Bombay. So this was a kind of a design envisaged for Persian coins. Then we have actual account that a stamp of the said coin was made, and then it should be actually sent to the deputy president and the council at Surat for approval. And so we know that at least some coins were with this kind of design was struck at this time. Then we have another entry in 1674, which says that the inscription should be changed to Charles Shah Inglistan. So this is not most likely the earlier inscription was written in Farsi, but was still in English language. Maybe later on it was changed to Farsi language as well. So it was not just the script that was Farsi, but the language was Farsi as well. And this is in end of 1674. We say that they're having debates about it, and we had several debates and arguments concerning another sort of stamp under a Persian character, which we hope in time will pass as well as rupees and without loss or batta to anyone. But it being an affair of no mean concern, we concluded to suspend our further proceeds and discourse thereon. So basically, they decided this time this was going to be too problematic a scenario. So then they stopped this discussion. We do have an evidence that in 1686, King James II at that time, he also then sort of renewed the charter that Charles II had given them, and he permitted the company to strike coins like local coins. So this was, this is a very interesting phrase coming up. So he allows the company to strike coins like local coins. So whether like actually means visibly similar to the local coins or just in weight or purity, that is a very interesting mute point, as it were, there. And we do have examples of this particular variety, which a lot of times comes into the market as of Charles II's coins. But there is no direct evidence that these are actually Charles II's coins. There is nothing to suggest, because we know from the documents that the inscriptions on the Charles II coins were supposed to be Charles Shah of Inglistan or something like that. But there is nothing on these coins which actually corresponds to that description. What exactly these coins are remains yet to be ascertained, but there are certain interesting aspects regarding this. So first of all, there are definitely two different sorts of these coins, and I've shown them here. The top variety and the lower variety are actually distinct inscriptions. If you see carefully, there are changes, like here it changes up here. There's something completely different here. Some of these have a regnalier. It says 2 or something like that here, and they are still enigmatic coins. We don't know who struck them. In most likelihood, all likelihood, they have inscriptions which are written in Farsi but are in some other language. They are not actually inscriptions written in Farsi language as well. They are just written in Farsi script, but there are some other language inscriptions. We don't know. So, but there are a number of these coins now known. Maybe about 30, 40 specimens have turned up. There are even fractions known, half rupees are known. But we really can't figure out who actually was behind striking these coins. One thing is absolutely sure, that they are not really Charles II's coins. So that is something that we can be definitely assured of. Then there are coins which are probably struck in the name of James II, and this is something again quite interesting. They are not being conclusively read. There is something like the Sikka here and Jahan, but above here, apparently, on the top half of the obverse, you can see that it says James D. Sekun, which is again kind of English words which are written in Farsi script, and that is probably correct. And what is interesting is that these coins apparently have a regnalier 4, which you can see on the top left coin where my cursor is. This is where regnalier 4 is. And if they are actually struck in the regnalier 4 of James II, then they would be dated to 1688 to 89, and that was his last. And he abdicated in 1689 as a result of the Glorious Revolution, as it is called. So there was the last regnal year of his, and then they are sort of in chronologically they are correctly placed, because we know that he gave the charter to the East India Company in 1686, and then this regnal year 4 then sort of matches with that. So it's quite more or less certain that these are issues of James II struck at Mumbai. And again, here again, we have half rupees, which is, I see an example here, which is again, extremely rare, probably unique in that respect. I'm also aware of a quarter rupee of the same existence. So there was a whole currency system that was going on at this time. But by far, the most significant issues that are known to be Persian style British coinage at Bombay were these coins, which are issued in the name of the successive rulers, William and Mary. So here the inscription is absolutely clearly written, and it says Sikka Zad Doran, King William and Queen Mary. So this is what the obverse inscription says. And on the reverse it says Sikka, Sana Julus Angrez Shaheen. So it's the plural of the word Shah, Shaheen, the regnal year of the English monarchs in plural, Zarab Mumbai. And we have three dates on this. There is regnal year 4, regnal year 5, and regnal year 6. And this kind of corresponds to 1694, 93, 94, 95, 96, roughly, about that time. And we know that these coins were struck long before there were actual specimens of these coins were discovered. The reference was known from a kind of a historical account that we know. And this is the account of Muhammad Hashim Khafi Khan at Bombay. And this is something which is referred to in Mughal documents. In 1695, a very interesting episode happened. There was a very famous pirate called Henry Avery. You might have seen, some of you might have seen the movie Pirates of the Caribbean. And the character of Captain Jack Sparrow in that movie is actually based on the stories and the character that was floating about Henry Avery at this time. And in 1695, Henry Avery attacked a Mughal ship that actually belonged to Aurangzeb. And this was the ship was coming back from Makkah, and it was raided in the South Arabian Sea by Henry Avery. And it was basically looted. And when this loss was reported to Aurangzeb, the news writers of the port of Surat, because this was the ship was going to come into Surat. The officers at Surat sent some rupees, which the English had coined at Bombay, with a super inscription containing the name of their impure king. So this is the kind of reference that we get for these William and Mary coins at this time. So probably in order to suggest to Aurangzeb that all British are, plunderers and impure, etc., they made this kind of story up. So look, they said that not only the British have raided your ship, but they have also struck coins in the name of their impure king. And these are some of the examples. Then Khafi Khan, who was a chronicler, then arrives at Bombay, and he arrives as the agent of Abdul Razak, who was the Kiladar at Raigad of this time. And we know that all these Mughal officers, they were also involved in trade. They were not just political officers. So Abdul Razak actually had some merchandise on the Gange Savai ship. So that is what he wanted to sort of, talk to the British about. And then Khafi Khan arrives and he meets at the governor. And there is a very colorful account that what sort of went on between them. Of course, Khafi Khan, representing the mighty Mughal authority, was very much had the upper hand in the negotiations. And then he says to them, the governor, "What a manifest declaration of rebellion you have shown in coining rupees." So, he obviously doesn't like the fact that the British are coining rupees in the name of their own kings, but also looking in Farsi. And the governor says, "Oh, we are very sorry about this, but this was, we took this step, this measure to avoid great disputes in money exchange, and it's not just a problem for us because we had to do this because exchange of money is always a problematic thing." And he was trying to suggest in a sort of roundabout way that this is something in your hand. This is something that your shroffs, the shroffs in your territories are doing to us, and we had to take a measure because we want to trade. We are tradesmen. We have to trade. How can you expect us not to trade? And they said this is something that we had to do because to avoid disputes in money exchange that were there. And as you know, nothing happens at this time. We probably we don't know whether the coin they continued issuing these coins beyond those 3 regnal years. There's a small chance because the actual entry of withdrawal of these coins appears in the records only in 1697. So it says, as the Mughal had been offended by the company's coins having Persian characters on them, the court desired that for a time this might be discontinued. This is the stop to the coins that they wanted to they were trying to issue. So here we are. I mean, this is the kind of situation here. The company is in trouble. They cannot circulate Latin coins. They cannot circulate Persian coins. How are they going to do the trade? So in the early 1700s, that is the lowest time when the company's activities are at the at the lowest ebb. So mint for silver coins is stopped at this time. Instead, there was a decision taken that the foreign coins that were coming into island of Bombay, they would just counter-strike them, counter-stamp them, and then they would they? And what were these foreign coins? They were of a different sort of kinds. There were Spanish dollars, there were French crowns, there were Dutch ducatoons or Rix dollars. These were Dutch coins. So all these foreign dollars that were coming into the trade, they would be just counter-struck into kind of equivalent values, and then they would be circulated. We have one entry in the records in 1705. It says that 2 rupees 48 paisa were the exchange value of this. So this was like, that was then stamped on this. So this is your chance when you could find some coin which is actually has these kind of stamps on the dollars, and not a single one has been as yet found. But this is what says that a stamp of 2R48P should be added onto the coins till a stamp can be obtained for coining rupees. Till we can actually carry on coining rupees, which was not anymore profitable. So and all this activity was going to be carried out in some jhopdi-like structure, tiled sheds away from the powder bastions. So this was again something that they have to be very careful about, that these activities should not be carried near gunpowder magazines, because they were prone to be the explosions there. So not even a proper and convenient place for this was found. They would say they would be put up in some sort of makeshift sheds away from the powder bastions, and this was continuing. The copper coins did carry on during this, as we know that the last copperoon design we saw was in 1709, and the copper coin story has always been the silver lining to the cloud, because the copper coins were really very much into kind of, they were the only profitable kind of coins that the company was making. So the copper coinage sort of carries on between 1705 to 1717. In fact, there is a new design introduced at 1705 with a crown and the word bomb at the bottom, with on the reverse the motto of the company. So this was the new design that they issued in 1705, and that sort of carried on. Ultimately, it was only in 1717 that the company was granted a permission to issue Mughal style coinage. And how that happened is another long story, which I will not go into details of. But what we should remember at this time is this is what actually changed the fortunes of the company. So in 1717, where they ultimately had the permission to strike coins of the Mughal type in the name of Farrukhsiyar, the Regnal Empire, with the mint name Mumbai. This is a good example of that. Regnal Year 6 is the earliest Mughal coin issued in Mumbai. This is where situation started changing. This is where, from this point onwards, the company's establishment at Bombay had a reliable coin of their own, and something that they were trying all the way from 1665 came to a fruition at this time. And then from here onwards, they could conduct their trade into a medium that was acceptable to everyone around them. And this is the time that Bombay starts actually flourishing. So all the 40 odd years of history before this is a kind of a history of trying to finding a foothold, as they were. And this foothold was ultimately found in 1717 when the company had the ultimate permission to actually strike coins like the Mughal coins in Bombay. So to conclude, I can say that the history of early coinage in Bombay is very much linked with the importance of Bombay as a trading and commercial center. Until they had coins, they did not prosper. The trade always was carried out in a sort of ramshackle kind of manner. This whole history also tells us about how the coinage was viewed by different rulers. British rulers on one hand, Indian rulers like Shivaji and Aurangzeb on one hand. They all have very interesting takes on who issues coins, how they should circulate. This is something, a very interesting aspect of this whole story that has come to us. The episodes also offer us an insight into how money was actually functioning, not just as coins, but also how making money was actually, minting money was a profitable activity as commodity. How trust and acceptance in payments mattered to a lot of people, and how the visuality of the coin in function. So, the fact that the British could not circulate coins which were actually written in a foreign script, a Latin script, or which was not, familiar to the people at that time. So the visuality of the coin design very much mattered to these people, and this is the very interesting insight that we can see is here. We can see also that the fledgling coastal economy at this time, and this was kind of dependent on factors of like import of bullion. The British could not actually launch their own currency until they had a secure bullion inflow. The silver had to come from somewhere, the copper had to come from somewhere. So this was again a very interesting aspect of the story. And also, this gives us a very good insight into the mercantile aspirations of the company. Profits were making wealth for them. So the idea that profits make wealth is, as a political, economic, philosophical principle, that is also an interesting take that kind of offers an interesting insight into all these things. So with this, I'm going to end my talk, and I'm going to stop the sharing, and we can look at the questions if there are any. So thank you very much. Be safe, be well, and I shall see you again on next Friday. Thanks a lot. Okay, so where is Malcolm?
Hi, thank you, Shailendra, for this wonderful talk, replete with several fantastic and very rare coins. So it was amazing to see these very nice coins. We have, as I mentioned earlier in the start, Pukhraj Bhai amongst us. So
very good.
If he wants to add something, or if he has any comments, Pukhraj Bhai, you can go ahead. And for all the other viewers, if you all have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box. We will read it out, and then Shailendra can take those questions one by one. Over to you, Pukhraj Bhai.
Hello. Does Pukhraj Bhai want to say something? Good. That is always what I want to hear from you. So. What's he saying?
What is the comment, Amit? Can you repeat that for us, Amit?
He's saying कि
he doesn't let him speak.
Let's move to the first question.
Thank you, Pukhraj Bhai. It is a great pleasure to see you always. आप आए बहुत अच्छा लगा. अगले को भी आइए. हाँ, अभी पिछले दो आपको रिकॉर्डिंग भेजते हैं, आप सुनिए फिर.
Okay, so the first question here, it is when did gold coins start probably minted in Bombay.
Earliest gold coin we have is about 1730s. Before that, there is no mention of gold coins. The earliest gold coins we have are dated regnal year 11 of Muhammad Shah. So that would be around 1730-31. I mean, gold was, of course, gold being gold, it was very difficult to actually get hold of. So, and mainly the company's intention was not to strike, because, whatever wealth they were generating was actually being exported anyway. And the main function of the gold coins was to actually store wealth. So they didn't practically need that so much.
Okay. Next question is, would the last Coproon be 1703 with 3 retrograde or 1709?
I think it is 1709, but I don't know. I mean, I can check again, but I think it is 1709.
There's another question from me because I missed a few parts in the beginning. What was the reason for the East India Company to mint coins? I mean, there would have been a lot of coins anyways been made available from Mughal times. So then why the need?
Well, as I said, there was a demand for coins in Bombay, particularly. The local population wanted coins to be used as small exchanges. That was the main reason. And the second reason was that if they think that they had their own coin, then they would not have to rely on the Mughal mint or the shroffs. They could actually make their own coins and pay for their own coins, with their own coins, really. So they did not. So this whole question of intermediaries would be resolved. So that was the reason. And the third thing is that making coins was profitable. I mean, they could actually get at silver at a lower rate and then make rupees out of it and get profit out of them.
But your first point being that there was demand for it. But wouldn't that demand be met by the existing stock or supply?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, obviously, it wasn't being met with the existing. Because what happened, I think, is when the Portuguese sort of go out of the picture, particularly for low value coins. And there is a local economy operating at this time. So we know that Bombay was actually, trading in coconut, in fish, all these kind of things. So that was quite, so I think they probably wanted, and also once the establishment was made there of, a proper establishment, the people have to be paid, like, soldiers or whoever, they have to be paid. So.
Yeah. So moving on to the next question, does Shivaji's coins were clashing with this East India Bombay coins?
No, they were not clashing, because we saw that when Henry Oxenden orders change, he actually finds Bombay coins in the change. And even a few years ago, they conducted, those of you who had been to actually Raigad Fort know that there is a big lake there called Ganga Sagar. And a few years ago, the lake was dredged. And some coins were found when the lake was dredged. And they were actually a very sort of, a good, because, the Fort of Raigad was actually taken over won over by Mughals in 1690, very, very soon after Shivaji's demise. And so the kind of coins that they found in the lake were actually Mughal copper paisas of Surat Mint, Bombay paisas, and Shivaji's own coins. So there were from the available evidence, it doesn't seem that they were clashing in any way. As Shivaji himself said, people were free to accept whatever they want. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then there's another question by Mr. Vivek Mathai. Did these coins move out of Bombay for trade?
There is not much information available of them moving out of trade when they were actually making these British style coins. I mean, we know that they circulated in northern Konkan, but from Bombay to Raigad is not really that great a distance. So they did enjoy some sort of local circulation, but of course their whole idea was to actually introduce them to, if you see the report that they said that we want to make them more acceptable to the Portuguese, to the British, or sorry, to the Mughals, to Shivaji, all these people. So they did move a little bit, but not a great deal.
Can you elaborate or tell us something more about the transitional coins of the East India Company, which have Farsi dates on them?
Shadi, sorry.
With the coins with the Farsi dates on them?
Which Farsi dates coin? Sorry, I don't know.
There are the 4-digit dates, like years 1, 2, 3, 4, and
no, I'm not aware of these. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't get. Sorry.
Okay. Anyways, coming back to the other questions, is the half Bombay rupee found in junk now in a museum?
No, it is in a private collection, thankfully.
The next question is what was the coins of Portuguese in Mumbai?
In Mumbai, do they ever? No, there was no evidence of Portuguese issuing coins in Mumbai. There is some evidence of Portuguese issuing coins in Vasai, which was just to the north of Mumbai. But I mean, the real thing is that the Portuguese establishment at Mumbai was not really a major establishment by any means. Very earlier on, everybody had realized that Bombay was a very safe harbor. So it was mainly used as a kind of refuge, either from monsoons or from battles. So before it became a trading hub, the importance of Bombay Harbor was mainly strategic. So it was never a center of political or mercantile activity before the British came. So.
Okay. Do we have any more questions coming in?
No, I don't think so.
One thing to note is, sorry, a few people had to join in a bit late. We have had some problem with the registration, but we've recorded this this talk, and this is going to be made available on YouTube and Facebook. So all those people who've joined in late, or all those who've not been able to make it, they'll be able to see this. There's another question that's come in from Ganesh Nene. Are copies of Copperun minted at Surat?
I don't think there were copies of Copperun minted at Surat. There certainly are unofficial copies of Copperuns. So the currency apparently was popular enough to cause imitations. Who made them and where made them is not known. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yes. Thank you. I think.
All right. Okay. We shall conclude now, and you can conclude the meeting. And well, for next Friday, I was thinking of talking something about Maratha coins, but not a general topic about Maratha coins, but one particular very interesting episode that involves the formation of a central mint by the Marathas. So I would talk about that one particular episode with a view to showcase how this whole sort of story that happened at that time can be understood in ways which are more historical in sense.
Okay.
So this is a very interesting episode that happened in around 1755. And this was all about establishing a central mint at Dharwad. So what happened? Why the episode was not successful, and what exactly was going on? That's a very interesting story. Okay. So it is a kind of marriage of political history, kind of underplays between authority and monetary history. So I thought that would be a good idea. So I'll talk about that. I'll give you the exact title and everything tomorrow.
Sure. Right. Thank you. On behalf of Mumbai Coin Society, we thank Dr. Shailendra Bhandare once again. Thank you. It was an awesome talk. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.